And we're on. This is the Great Classic Movie Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Steve.
And we talk anything and everything as it pertains to movies, old movies, new movies, comedies, westerns, dramas, anything. As long as it's good, we'll talk about it. We try to keep it interesting. We try to have fun. If you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Rock Debate. All right, let's get started. It is my understanding we are going to travel back to 1999. I think that was the right year. The Sixth Sense was probably the big unexpected smash hit of the entire calendar year, because there was not a lot of hype leading up to it, and man, was there hype after it hit the theaters. So Paul, I'm going to flip it over to you. Why don't you go and get us started?
Well, I was trying to think of a movie. My daughters are getting older now, 10 and 13. I said, I need a movie that's scary, but not super violent and not, so I said, The Sixth Sense. It's a thinking person's movie. So I put it in there and I watched my daughters. Like when Kenny
how old are the two daughters right now?
10 and 13.
Okay, all right, good.
When Kenny and I went to see Leaving Las Vegas, I was watching then I looked over and Kenny's butt was doing this during the whole movie. And then another time I had already seen Mulholland Drive and I put on at his house and I watched you more than the movie because your face started like making weird things. Like you can't assimilate what's happening.
Right.
And it's funny to watch people's reactions. So same with this with my daughters. And I something about the Shyamalan, how he, like we talked about, the Beatles don't have a lot of alternative, distracting. Same with Shyamalan, the way he paints his things. There's not a lot going on. Every movie I think of his is the backgrounds are plain. He wants you focusing 100% on the character. That's brilliant. Right. A little bit like Coppola and The Godfather. Very similar style, actually. Just thought about that now. So so we watched the movie. They were sucked in, and then my daughters, they loved it. And they were trying to figure it out, and when they finally figured out the twist, it was like, wow, oh my, and it's this movie that makes you think, and then you automatically go, all right, I'm gonna go back and find the flaw.
I did it, yeah. And I tried to do it, yeah.
Steve, go ahead, jump in.
No, I just enjoy listening to you guys. I was trying to think of a scary movie that would be good for kids, and I couldn't think of anything. So I was trying to come up with a joke, so I'm pretty lame. But no, I thought it's a solid movie. I did see it recently at the gym again on the treadmill, and I did the same thing. I was like, okay, I want to try and find the flaw.
Right.
Where does this, I couldn't find one. I'm sure there is somewhere.
I couldn't either, but I was convinced before I actually sat down to watch it the second time. I was convinced the scene where he sits down with his wife in the restaurant, because I said, he's going to pull the chair out. This is it. I've got it. I know what he's going to. And when he walks in, the chair is already out. He just sits. He doesn't touch anything. And I go, oh my God, they covered it. I was so certain that was going to be the one, but no, they got it.
My daughter.
Well done.
Ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, it's not my favorite movie of his. I did really enjoy Unbreakable and Signs. And I know we're not going to talk about those today, but it's a solid movie. And again, back then, it was unexpected. Nobody knew of this director. Nobody knew of his, everything going for a twist. And
that's the highest grossing horror movie of all time when it came out. I think it was
probably if it's considered a horror movie. I don't know.
It was, because I remember people saying that. Now I'm not saying it's a horror movie, but in a way it is. It's kind of like The Exorcist, but toned down and satanic. Like, he doesn't talk about why there's ghosts.
Yeah, I would say it's a thriller more than it is. I wouldn't say it's.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying that's what they said.
Kind of hard to categorize that one,
but
I think it falls into the thriller aspect. Thriller.
Michael Jackson thriller, yeah. My daughter said the scene where we went back and looked, where Bruce Willis goes to that girl's house where she was murdered by her own mother, and when they walk in the bedroom, just one shadow, I'm like, oh my God. It's like I was expecting the cameraman to make a mistake. Either they didn't have Bruce Willis go in the room, which is probably what they did.
Right.
On the when they walk into the little girl's bedroom and the girl's under the thing and hands them the tape, I was like, okay, there's gonna be two shadows. And my daughter thought that too. One shadow.
Wow.
You're like,
Wow. That's
this
good stuff.
bastard thought of everything, man. That was awesome.
That's
And
good stuff.
I watched, so I hadn't seen that movie probably in 20 years until last night. And the Bruce Willis, you can't, and then that little kid, Haley Joel Osment, and poor guy, he didn't age well.
Right.
He's in the series called The Boys, and he plays a character there. I was like, dude, you got to hit the gym because he didn't get large, and I call me up, Haley. I will turn you into a demon, like Kenny turned me into a demon.
Right.
And
Well, he was in Silicon Valley as well.
I never saw it. I believe you. I just never saw it.
You say that with such disdain. It's a TV show. It was on HBO.
I wasn't ripping it.
Okay.
No, I know. I just never saw it.
It's a Mike Judge show.
Oh no, I wasn't ripping it anyway.
You would love it. So yeah,
no, okay, I got to go back.
It's a send up of startup businesses in Silicon Valley. I mean, they lampoon everybody in that show. I mean, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. It's a great show.
Okay.
My story about the funniest story ever about this movie. I'm coming back from Russia, so I go from St. Petersburg to Amsterdam and Amsterdam to Memphis, and then on the plane, that's the movie that's showing, The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense. Sorry.
Now on this plane, there's probably 2 Americans and 400 non-Americans, and most of them are Greek, Turkish, Armenian, all these people. So I'm sitting there, I don't feel well. And I'm watching a movie. I know what's happened. I know everything like we know now. And the movie gets done, and people are like, yep, 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 yeah. And you can see people talking across the aisles. And finally, I'm like, oh no, I know what's happening. They don't understand what's happened. And finally, in about 20 minutes, this guy goes, are you American? I'm like, yes. He goes, have you seen this movie? And I go, Bruce Willis has been dead the entire movie. And the guy's like, okay, no, yeah, he's been dead the entire. I shake my head like this, and I keep telling the guy. And finally, after about 5 minutes of it, he understands. So then he turns and translates to the rest of the plane. The rest of the plane, like, no. They're like, no. Everyone starts yelling at me. People looking at me like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I said, he's dead. When we get off the plane in Memphis, people are coming up to me. And, if one of them might be able to speak English, I said, yeah, the guy shoots him and he's dead the whole movie. Right. And he's one of the dead people that the boy can see.
Right.
It was really funny, actually, to see their reaction to it. They were totally entranced by it.
Right. Paul,
cool.
I think I told you this once before, but I'll mention it just quickly. There was a movie made back around 1963 or 64 called Carnival of Souls.
Yeah.
Very low budget. I don't think there's a single known actor in it, but that was the origin of this particular plot mechanism, which Shyamalan borrowed. I'll guess, he borrowed it quite effectively, I might add. But yes, in Carnival of Souls, the exact same plot mechanism is used. This lady is throughout the movie. Things are not making sense, and she's living in this weird reality or whatever. And at the end of the movie, she realizes she's dead. Yeah. So
there's another movie that came out probably about 20 years ago with Nicole Kidman. It's called The Others.
The Others, yeah.
And it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen it, but
I liked it, but I confess I did not see that ending coming.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
I never saw it. Now this is going to go in the way back machine.
Okay.
Kenny will know it. And they finally ripped it off on network TV this year. The show was called Topper. You remember the show, Kenny? This is in the 50s.
Who's in it?
No one that you know.
Okay.
TV show.
Okay.
And the premise is this guy who's a bachelor moves in this upscale house, and the people that live there, like Beetlejuice, they're dead, and only he can see them. And so they try to help him along in life. Like if a girl comes over and like, oh, I don't think he's right for you, and he's like, shut up. Like sometimes, like, and like, the woman's like, who are you talking to? Nobody. It's funny. I mean, it's a funny concept for like the 50s or 60s called
Right.
Copper.
Right.
And now they have that show called Ghosts, which I've seen the trailer 5,000 times. I've never seen the episode, but it's basically ripping off this show that only these two people in this house can see the ghosts. No one else
Yeah,
can.
okay.
And of course, it's comedy. It's it's
Right.
There's a British version of that show now too. I don't know which one came first. I
no,
saw.
no,
I
the
saw
Ghost
trailer.
UK. The Ghost American version's first, and then they just ripped it off. It's kind of like NCIS. They're gonna have NCIS, Reykjavik, Iceland, and NCIS, Tokyo, Japan. I'm like, hold on. Is the U.S. Navy in all these places? Like they have one in Sydney, Australia now. I'm like, what?
I'm waiting for
Right.
like NCIS, like Gary, Indiana, like
Steve,
like places like nobody would ever want to travel to.
Right.
Steve just threw a 3-2 fastball down the pike, and I'm trying to not hit it. I'm just holding off. I'm holding off, and I took it for a ball. But Steve was a well played, Steve.
Well, okay. Or how about Mansfield, Ohio then?
Yeah, okay. No, but that was good one, Steve. You almost got me. I almost bit on it. All right. The other thing I want to talk about today, and this is fun for us. We want to have fun on the show. Movies that you viscerally hated. And
Okay.
I could go on for days, but let's just have fun with this. Maybe see how long we can go with this. Have fun with it. So
Movies
whoever
that
wants,
you hated and now like, or when
no, or you could do that too. That's Steve. That's a good twist. You could be either one. So I think we talked about this on the show before. I'll go first, set the tone, and I won't go long because we talked about this movie called Wolf Creek.
I watched that on YouTube after you mentioned it the last time.
And it is the biggest piece of trash ever. And then to make it worse, I saw on like when I was still living in LA, they were like the ranking the best horror movies of all time. There was like second, only behind The Exorcist. So I go to class at UCLA at film school, and there's some people, some producers, and I just say, I would rather you take a dump and I film it and watch it over and over on a loop than ever see that movie again. And it was so god awful, and it was like an hour and a half before the inciting incident happens. Then we find out the guy is literally indestructible. He's not a Terminator. He's not an android. He's not a replicant. He's a normal guy. He gets shot through the neck with a bullet, and he just wraps it up with like a handkerchief.
Band-aids.
Like, oh, okay. And then after being shot, he does a sniper move on a quarter of a mile away, blows the head off of a person in a car,
Right.
and driving.
Right.
Like, oh, now he's indestructible, and he was going to put Chris Kyle to shame.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're like, this is garbage.
Well, I can bear
ahead.
witness. I can bear witness because I've been to, I'm going to say hundreds of movies with Paul in my lifetime. And we've been to so many movies I can't begin to count. And I've seen a wide array of different reactions. Movies he loved, movies he hated, whatever. I've never seen worse rage. Rage. And it was snowballing. It started early on in the movie and it was getting worse. He was getting angry.
It was like, so I went to the people at UCLA. I went to film school at UCLA, and to the head of the program, and I say, let me break down this movie for you. What happened? And they're like, they were exasperated, And so, Kenny, I was so mad, Steve. When we went into the lobby, we saw the whole movie. I went to the manager and I just started rampaging on him. And the guy goes, I say, I want my money back. And the guy goes, you're supposed to like walk out of the movie in 10 minutes, not watch the whole thing. I said, dude, this is garbage. And he gave 2 free tickets, which
Free
they gave
passes,
to Kenny.
yeah.
Because I didn't live in West Palm Beach anymore. But all right, that's enough of me ripping on that movie. You two go.
Okay, I can go unless you want to go, Steve.
No, go ahead. Or Steve,
Go ahead.
Okay. So for me, before I even say the movie's name, because you're both my friends and I like you immensely, I pray that neither one of you ever saw this movie. Okay. It feels like it was about 15 years ago, and it was called Juno, Juno. And It was nominated for Oscars. It was written by a girl who I think was an ex-stripper or something like that.
Dakota something. Go ahead.
Something. And
Diablo Cody.
there you go. Yeah, there you go. And the main character is this teenage girl who gets pregnant. Okay, so I heard so many good things about the movie. And I should also note, I know this is going to sound terribly sexist. Every complimentary word that I heard about the movie was from a female, from a woman. I didn't hear a guy. But then again, the proportion of guys who saw this movie had to be minuscule compared to the number of women, unless the guy was just dragged on a date, which happens, okay. So, but I had heard so many good things that I assumed that there would be something likable about it, even if it's not necessarily my favorite movie. So from the time I sit down and start watching this, Paul, I used the term snowball to describe how your rage just amplified throughout the movie, and it never ever changed direction. It just got worse, and you just got angrier. You were about to blow a blood vessel or something. So as this movie began, probably in one of the first scenes, I'm noticing that, okay, I lived through my teenage years, and everybody knew somebody in school who, either a guy who had gotten a girl pregnant or a girl who got pregnant. And man, is that an uncomfortable thing for everybody involved and the parents, and man, stuff goes around school. And I mean, at my high school, there was at least one or two people who were my age who it happens, and so my reality did not, the reality of this, the universe in which this movie's reality was taking place did not intersect with the reality in which I exist, because so many plot elements. I'm just going to give you an example, okay? I can tell you, as a teenager, if I had gotten a girl pregnant and she had to tell her parents, I mean, the moment she finished the sentence saying, "I'm pregnant," the first thing out of their mouth would be, "Who is the guy that got you pregnant?" It's the first thing they would ask. And they wouldn't ask it in a kind way. It would be
Who's the lucky guy?
Yeah, it would be a hostile question. Her parents in the movie never ask her once who's the, she doesn't have a boyfriend, so she's, she has to have had sex with some dude, but she doesn't have a boyfriend, so they don't. If there was a boyfriend, I guess you could explain why they didn't ask, even though they're still going to ask in real life. But in the movie, her parents never ask the question, the elephant in the room question that every parent would ask. And the movie just progresses from there, in which every scene takes place in an alternate universe in which nobody says or does the things that in reality people would say and do. And I sat there watching this. I was on a date. All right. I sat there watching it, and I'm getting angrier because I'm going, okay, I don't know whether to just write this off as terrible writing, or should I take it personally, the degree to which they are insulting my intelligence. And it's getting worse. It's getting worse. And there's a scene. What is that guy's name who played in Ozark? Is it Jason or
Jason Bateman?
Jason Bateman. Okay, yeah, I like that guy. He's in this movie, and he and his wife, who I think that they just got married, or maybe they're about to get married. They're a young couple, and they're looking to adopt. And so the girl, the teenage pregnant girl, hasn't decided whether she's going to abort the child or give birth and then adopt. And so somehow or another, they get her name, and they want to go meet her and go ahead and get to know her and get to know each other and start making arrangements. I think they're under the assumption that she's going to give it up for adoption. And anyway, Jason Bateman who's a young guy. I'm going to suppose in his mid-20s at this time, and the girl is a teenager. They're having this deep conversation about punk bands from the 70s, and and I'm like, okay, even if he knew some of it, I don't think he was even born then, but even if he knew some of these because his parents listened to that or his older brother or whatever, the fact that this teenage girl, her knowledge about punk bands in the 70s is even better than his, I'm going, this is so unrealistic. And why would they be talking about this anyway? It was, it was infuriating watching this movie. And the longer it went on, the worse it got. It never got better. It only got worse. It moved in only one direction. And the longer I sat there, I was fidgeting and I was like, oh my God, please let this movie end. I'm going to blow a gasket. So when the movie finally ended, we leave the theater and I'm trying to keep my composure, and I go, so what'd you think of it? She goes, oh, I really liked it. I thought it was good. I'm like, that's, that's what I expect a chick to say. Right. So I take her home, I drop her off, and then I'm heading home. And as I'm driving home, I'm about to go insane. I mean, I'm just beside myself. I'm going, okay, I cannot be the only person on this planet who can, it's almost like the emperor has no clothes, right? Like the one kid is the only one who will say he's naked. Everybody else is pretending. Like, is everybody really pretending that this movie I just saw was good? Because it was god awful. It was terrible. And it was so as I'm driving home, I go, I will not be able to sleep tonight until I just need to find one review, just one. I have to find one review that's negative, where the guy says, I'm not going to play along with everybody. This movie's terrible. So I'm browsing through Rotten Tomatoes, and I see one where it's not a fresh tomato. So I click on it, and the review opens, and the opening line of his review is etched forever in my brain. It's etched forever. It said, the disingenuousness of this beast was suffocating. And I went, oh my God, I can go to bed and I can sleep. Oh my God, that's exactly. I couldn't have thought of words quite so eloquent, but he nailed it. The disingenuousness of this beast was suffocating. There was nothing realistic or genuine at all about this movie. It just took place in an alternate reality fantasy land, and we're supposed to watch it and pretend, yeah, it's realistic. No, it's not. It's awful. So anyway, that's my guys. You don't ever have to watch this to verify that what I'm telling you is true. Don't.
I had the misfortune. I was in a producer's class at UCLA. So you must have saw this movie 2008, 2009,
About
that
right.
era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About right.
So I had to review this script. And remember, in the movie, I never saw the movie, but she kept talking about men's genitalia as pork swords.
Yep.
And I went, what the hell? And I started reading the movie, and I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And all the women in the class were like, she's dreamy. I want to be able to write like her. And all the guys, even the guys who I know are on the opposite end of the spectrum politically, they're like, let me run out of this room. We're all having to. Oh. So, Steve, any comments, buddy?
No, I've never seen it because I remember hearing your comments about it like 15 years ago. So I was like, there's no need for me.
No,
yeah. And you know what? Listen, I've seen lots of terrible movies in my life. That's just it's a flip of the coin, But if this movie had gotten bad reviews and I had for some reason gone to see it anyway, and then I disliked it, I wouldn't have reacted the same way because, well, it got bad reviews and I kind of knew it was going to be bad. But because they were heaping so much praise, nonstop praising this movie, it was a work of genius or whatever. And that was the part that just made it unbearable for me because
it was so. See, like I had a good buddy of mine. You guys don't know him at UCLA. He's a writer. He wrote a screenplay which should have been greenlit called The Pill. Okay, it's about the birth control pill.
Okay,
and how Margaret Sanger's people are trying to get it, the progesterone, I think it's called, out there. And my buddy wrote it just a neutral point of view. He wasn't trying to be left or right, and he talked about this woman who every time they should have sex, she'd get pregnant. She was a Puerto Rico woman. She had like 14 kids. And she's like, I'm tired. I can't keep having kids. I'm like 37 years old and I've had 12, whatever it was. And so you could see the sympathy for this woman. She's Catholic. She loves Jesus Christ. But every time she's getting pregnant, she's tired of being pregnant. Right. And and I told him that. I said, dude, I'm against this movie politically and morally, but the movie itself you wrote is brilliant. And I'd probably greenlight the damn thing. Okay. I just how I felt because he came from it right down the middle. And he had people criticizing saying her, and then she's like, okay, I know. Now we both know now that he was probably portraying her in a positive light. But that being said, this movie, I don't even think this woman was trying to be politically left. I don't believe that. I think she's just being a woman and not having to deal with the consequences of it. Like this movie show. You guys see it? I saw it once. I tried to blow my head off. My gun was out of bullets. It was called "I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant."
Never heard of it.
It's like on MTV.
This is like an MTV show.
Yeah, and you're like, I gained 46 pounds. All these things happened to me, and I didn't do the math to realize when a guy is with me and he does this thing, I could get pregnant. And you're like, are you the stupidest human being on earth? Right? Like the problem with Juno is they never talk about how she got there and what she just like. It was almost, Kenny, when you started talking about it, I thought it was like immaculate conception. The movie starts, she's pregnant.
Right.
You don't get pregnant by accident.
Right.
You don't drive by somebody's house and the girl inside gets pregnant, right? That doesn't happen that way. So this movie takes away all this stuff that should have been talked about before. It's like, okay, my house is on fire. What do I do now? Well, I told you not to put gasoline near your fireplace, didn't I?
Well, there was one movie that came out in 1999 where there was an immaculate conception. The Phantom Menace.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Shmi Skywalker.
Right.
We're going to talk about that another time. Steve, your turn, buddy.
Yeah, Steve, you're up. And just for the record, we got our warning, but we have 10 minutes, so you shouldn't feel rushed. Go ahead.
Well, I cannot talk 10 minutes about this awful movie. So I saw it once, and it came out in 1999. Magnolia by Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh, my God. You don't like that?
No. There's one redeeming quality about it, which is Tom Cruise in it. I remember the movie being so boring and so just there was nothing going on. There was a scene. This is the only thing I remember. Two things about it. Tom Cruise, who had a great character in it.
He does.
But I don't, what it had to do with the story, I don't recall. But I remember Jason Robards being in the movie, and he had cancer or some sort of illness.
Yeah.
And I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And it was like, he's on his deathbed and he's dying. And he's giving this soliloquy or this death speech. And I was like, all right, I gotta go. So I get up, and I had drank probably like 64 ounces of Mountain Dew. So it wasn't quick. I come back. It's got to be 5 minutes later. He's still talking. And I just said, you got to be effing kidding me. He's still alive. And and then he kept talking for a couple more minutes, and then he died. And that's all I remember about the movie. I remember it being so just awful and boring, but I just remember that part.
Well, is it because I know Kenny and I both worship that movie.
Love it. Yeah.
But this is why this is such a subjective science.
Of course.
Talking about movies, and because Steve is more of a, Steve, tell me the difference. Now, Kenny hasn't seen this movie, Chris and the Dragon, where I'm awesome in it. They could say that about your movie, and I liked your movie. I told you I have. And it's the same kind of talky thing, right? Like there's talky character development. What's so different about it?
I think the difference is
I'm not in it.
I could not know. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I made my movie for $300, where they probably spent $30 million.
Touche. That's two touches you've got.
Well, and also, it's in my world, the movie I made was relatable to me because I knew people like that. I
Of course you
didn't
did.
know characters like
LARPers.
yeah. Well, I didn't do it. I never did live action role playing. I watched people do it. That's how I got the idea for it. But in Magnolia, I didn't know people like that. So those characters weren't really believable to me. I just remember, I guess I knew the Tom Cruise. I remember the Tom Cruise character, and I thought
When
it
did
was
you
funny.
last
And I
see
thought it was
Magnolia, Steve?
what's that?
When did you last see it?
And that's the only time I saw it, 1999 at the AMC in
Why don't you
Albedo,
watch
Florida.
it with the 45-year-old Steve eyes and see? Just curious, because I'm going to go back, and we haven't got to this, but so keep going. I'm just curious if you'll do that.
Maybe there's so many other things that I'd rather watch.
I would rather, you know what? I'll make you a deal. When I come to Denver, I'll watch it with you. So I'll
Well, it's
suffer with
3
you.
hours long. Like I want to see Killers of the Flower Moon, but it's 3.5 hours. I'm just
I
trying to
know.
find three and a
God.
half hours
Yeah.
out of my day
Yeah.
to go see it. So Magnolia, maybe it's good if I watch it over, 2 or 3 days.
I can tell
like
you, I've
running
seen
down a
it
root canal.
multiple times. I've probably seen it at least half a dozen times. I love it.
Now,
I do
if
too.
Boogie Nights is on, I cannot stop watching that movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it's just
beautiful.
it's a great. The movie moves, whereas I felt Magnolia like it needed an editor. I don't know who edited. I don't know if Paul Thomas Anderson edited his own movie,
I don't know.
and that's the worst thing is
I
having.
take your point, Steve, but I take your point. I'm not
Well,
going to
I
argue
knew-
because you could be right. I
Oh,
still
I-
love the movie. Kitty does too, but
Yeah, I knew the night that we saw the movie, when we were leaving the theater, I knew this is never going to be a box office hit because it's too long and the plot is so complex, and it's kind of like a vignette. It's a bunch of mini stories that are
exactly
all
what it
woven
is.
together.
That's
Yeah.
what I don't like is I hate movies where, and there's a few others that came out in the 90s that were very similar. And I'm trying to remember, like Go was another one that did that. And there's another movie with, oh God, what's her name? The Tomb Raider girl.
Angelina Jolie.
Angelina Jolie
Oh.
that she was in.
Not
that
Playing by Heart, was it?
That was it. And I hated
Oh, you hated that movie. I know, because I remember Steve was ranting about that movie, and I was like, it was all right.
Those two movies, Go and Playing by Heart, I probably dislike them for different reasons, though. There's two reasons. A, the vignettes, it doesn't work for me.
Okay.
And then also the company I saw it with, too, which wasn't Paul.
Okay. Fair enough.
Was as good looking as me.
Paul knows who it was.
Yeah, I do. I love Magnolia, and Kenny loves Magnolia, and
Yeah.
because I think you're right, Steve. Tom Cruise is one of those. Not many actors can do it. Christopher Walken is the same way, and you and I both worship Keith David. I would listen to Keith David read the phone book. I would laugh my butt off listening to him read the phone book because he's just something magical about that man, and
Yeah.
something magical about Christopher Walken. Same with Cruise.
Yeah.
He next.
I mean, in real life, Tom Cruise is a wacky guy. I don't, if I ever met him, I probably wouldn't like him. But for anybody who doubts how good of an actor he is, watch him in Magnolia. He plays like the biggest scumbag on earth, and he's convincing. He is good.
Yeah.
Oh, he's very.
God.
Watch Magnolia and Tropic Thunder.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
There's
There you
another
go.
movie which we're going to talk about next time. That's going to be my next rant, where he takes a movie that's a -14 and turns it into a 3, and that's called Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
That movie is garbage on a hot plate of garbage, but Tom Cruise makes that movie
Yeah, I agree.
semi-entertaining.
Yeah, I agree.
Just like that vampire movie.
I like that movie, Interview with the Vampire. Did you like it, Steve?
No, I did. When I was watching it, I was in high school, and I was like, there's some sort of undertone here that.
What do you think about that? Is
Exactly. I was like, I wasn't sure what they were getting at, and then you find out later. You're like, yeah, okay, that's what they were getting at. But I mean, I don't care. But
I love that
I
movie.
like them. If you have ever seen Bowfinger, That's one of the
Oh my
funniest
God.
movies ever.
I love
made.
that movie. It's hilarious.
Eddie Murphy says
Yeah.
Tom Cruise was in that vampire movie for 3 years before he knew he was in it.
I want
Okay,
to get
guys, we got to wrap it up.
All right.
Our 10 minutes is up. Okay, so that's going to be it for this week. Man, this was fun though. Paul, you were right. Okay, so this is the great classic movie debate, and I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
And if you happen to be watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Rock Debate. Until we meet again, we will see you next time.